to the Musical Theater Workshop created and presented by the Princeton Festival as part of its Virtually Yours Festival 2020. I am LaCosse, and today we're going to talk about the audition. Okay, last time we talked about all the things you needed to do to prepare for the audition. Now it's the audition day, and there are a lot of things at stake here. But always remember that the people that are auditioning you really want you to succeed. They're looking for people to fill these parts. They're not out to trap you, they're not out to set you up to fail. They want you to succeed. But you are a big part of that. Your job is to present affirmative answers to all the unspoken questions when you walk in the room that they can't even talk about. Is your voice suitable for the role or roles they are casting? Do you have a good vocal technique? Are you musical and able to learn music accurately? Can you act and move well? Will your voice, physical characteristics, and personality enhance the role or roles and fit with the other members of the cast? Will you be a responsible and cooperative team member? Remember that you have 5 to 7 minutes, and actually you have about 30 seconds from the time you walk in the door to portray some of those things. Okay. Now let's talk about your appearance in the audition. Yes, you should show them who you are, but you don't want to come in with something that disrespects the audition process. You want to look professional. You don't have to wear a jacket, a tie, a dress necessarily, but you have to look professional because you're going to make that first impression, and if you walk in and you're all put together, that's going to say, oh, that's someone who's put together. The time for other types of dress may be in a callback. When you're being called back for a particular part, you might do your hair in a certain way, you might dress in a certain way. But you want to wear something also, or have clothes with you that are comfortable, because there might be a dance call right after the audition. You have to make sure you can move, so make sure you have your dance clothes and your dance shoes with you at all times. Okay, coming into the audition, you have your book. And your book is all the music that you have ready for audition and the pieces that you're going to plan to do that day, or at least the first piece that you're planning to perform that day. So, make sure that your music is marked clearly. It's in a book. This is the age of duplex. No single-sided copies. Duplex it, put it in there, mark exactly what you're singing. If you're doing a 16-bar cut, make sure that is marked. If you're doing the whole piece, if you're starting somewhere in the middle, if you are cutting it, make sure it is perfectly marked for your pianist. Otherwise, there's a chance that something might go wrong in the audition because they're not rehearsing with you and they're just sitting down and playing. Most professional accompanist can handle this quite well, but you want to make sure that your music and your book is very professional. And, by the way, you should always have your book with you. You never know when there might be a chance to sing for somebody, so always have that book with you or very nearby so that if you have a chance to sing for somebody or perform for somebody, you've got your music there. You wouldn't want to miss that opportunity. Okay, the day before, what have you got to do? Okay, you're going to make sure that you have updated copies of your resume and your photo. You're going to make sure that your music is ready and properly marked. You're going to make sure you know what you're going to wear. Make sure it's all there. Think about the numbers that you're going to plan to sing that day. And I always say, you have a plan to what you're going to perform that day, but if you have, like I said in the last session, 5 to 7 pieces, you might be in better voice for one of these pieces rather than another piece. You always want to present what puts you in the best light for that day. And there are so many things you can't control. The amount of sleep you get, the weather, the travel, there's so many things you can't control. So make sure that you have in your head, okay, this is what I think I'm going to start with. But get ready to deviate from that plan if you get up that morning and you're a little froggy or something's in there and something might be a bit easier. Remember, the audition part is really to get the callback and to show them what you do well. So do not show them what you don't do well if it's in your control. Make sure that you eat properly. I know a lot of people don't like to eat a lot, but you should eat well the day before. Really fuel that body up and try to get a full night's sleep. There's a lot of pressure coming at you. There's a lot of people talking to you, and you really have to be at your best in the audition to set yourself up for success. On the day, make sure that you warm up before you go to the audition space. Remember, audition spaces are generally a room and a hallway, and people don't want you singing in the hallway. You can't really do that. You can't go to the bathroom. It's very, very difficult to find a place to sing once you get there. So make sure you're warmed up, and then whatever your exercises are, if it's a or a few lip trills, the things that you can do that aren't going to disturb other people. Remember, everybody else is in the same boat as you, and you don't want to be perceived as somebody who's taking up all of the warm-up space to yourself. Finally, make sure that during your waiting time that you're reviewing your music, your text, your dramatic intentions, relax, do some concentration things. Make sure that you are not just waiting and listening to the next person. Oh, what are they singing? What are they doing? Yes, when you come in, find out. Meet the monitor. Meet the people that you're turning your materials into. Talk to some people. You may know some people at this audition. See how they're doing. But spend your downtime before you go in getting in the zone. Because that's where you need to be when you walk into that audition. You cannot be scattered with 4,000 thoughts. You need to know exactly what you're going to do. Now this comes to a tricky part, creating your public persona. Many people will say, well, they should just like me for who I am. And that's absolutely right. But these are people who don't know you yet. So you have to come in and show them that you can actually be in the public and stand up in front of somebody and perform. And if you're inherently shy or inherently private when you walk in, that's not really going to serve you at its best. So, how do you create that public persona? Well, you should choose 4 or 5 qualities that you want to project when you're in that audition. You might choose expressive or electric, confident, sincere. And then using that magical if. Now, that if is something that we use in acting exercises. What if? What if I do this? What will happen? So, when you come in there, you walk in and maybe you ask your question, I am going to behave as if I am expressive, electric, confident, and sincere. So you have that in your image when you come into the room. You have that in your mind as you make your entrance. How to gather that public persona. So in that moment, when you are preparing yourself, a little bit of alone time while you're waiting for that audition, summon up that public persona. I want to be confident. I want to be sincere. I want to be electric. Those are the things that you want to say to yourself. And when they call your name, as you're walking into the room, say, I want to do the best work possible. I, as an auditioner, don't ever believe that anybody walks into a room and wants to do the worst work possible. You want to show them what you have. Remember, everybody has a different opinion, and you want to walk in to show them confidently and unapologetically, this is who I am and this is what I have to say. And that's really all you can do. A friend of mine actually likens that to cars. Okay, so you go out to buy a car. Let's say you have a Ford and a Toyota. Both very, very good cars, okay? But you know what? I'm doing the audition and I love Toyotas. And as good as that Ford was, I'm never going to buy it. I'm going to buy a Toyota. Now, the hard part about this is that can change day to day, depending on the mood of the people auditioning you and the given circumstances that they're under and where they are in the day. So all you can do is get in to show them the best that you have, and that's it. And you say, when you walk in, you introduce yourself. You introduce yourself certainly to the pianist, open your book, show them what you're going to do. Hopefully they'll greet you. In that greeting and in that time in the room, it's also a good time to test the acoustics. Is it a very live room? Is it a dead room? Just a chance to feel what it feels like to speak in that space before you open your mouth to sing. And then you say, good morning or good afternoon. I am so-and-so and I'd love to sing this for you. And you get out there, the piano starts, and you give that audition. Now, when you finish that, there may be interaction between them. They may be looking at your resume. They may look up at you briefly. You don't worry about their reaction to what you're doing. All you can do is give what you have. Because you don't know, they're listening to you, they're looking at your resume, they're looking at your headshot, they're making notes. Don't consider that to be, and that they're not paying attention to you. Some people can multitask very easily, and really the goal of that first audition is to get the callback. So they're asking 100,000 questions. If they speak to you, that's great. If they ask for a second piece, that's even better. But don't think that just because they didn't ask for a second piece, that you might not be called back. Sometimes it might be they're running short on time, that's all they can hear. And so don't play that game with yourself and say, oh, I didn't do well. You're doing the best you can. Okay? Make sure that once you announce your piece, you take just a moment for yourself to center yourself, put yourself in the character, raise your head, and go. And you are that character presenting that thought for that moment. If you don't take the time to do that, then you put yourself in jeopardy of not having a successful audition. Remember, the audition is really your job interview. Yes, you got the interview, but it's your time. So whatever time they give you, it's your time. Now, you don't want to take 3 minutes to get into character, but if you say, for instance, "Good afternoon, my name is Stephen LaCosse, and I would love to sing Tchaikovsky from Kurt Weill's Lady in the Dark." And I look up and I'm ready to go and I'm in character. It's that easy. And the more you do it, the faster you'll be able to get into that character. But really, you want to make sure that you set yourself up in that way to succeed the best you can in that moment. Now, also in that performance, sometimes auditioners like to look you in the eye and sometimes they don't. And you have to gauge that in the audition. So if I'm starting to sing and I see they're uncomfortable with me looking at them, then maybe I'll look over their heads or I'm going to perform to whatever. Because sometimes you can use the auditioner as the other character, if there's another character in the space. For an example, if you're singing a love song to somebody, you might start with them. If they're not comfortable with that, you can start it over there. But it's also what you're comfortable with. Eventually, you're going to have to get used to looking people in the eye and singing. But again, in the audition, do what you do well and don't second guess what it is you think they want you to do. They're looking for what you have to say. And if what you have to say resonates something in them, that's going to get you the callback and possibly the job. Okay, so you're giving your audition, you practice all that, and you're in the room, and depending on the size of the room, you're going to have to gauge how much to move. Okay? Now, certainly we don't want you standing like a statue, but you don't want to be using the entire room either. You want to map out about 3 feet in front of you and 3 feet to either side to give your audition. That's pretty much all you need, especially if the room is small. And oftentimes audition rooms are quite small, and the audition panel may not be any further away from you than I am from the camera right now. So, how much to move depends on the size of the room and what the gestures and what the character is doing. If it's a very demonstrative character, you might use a lot of gestures. If it's not, maybe it's a very internal song, so maybe you do most of it with your face. Remember, when you are singing, the voice is the most expressive tool that you have. So you have your voice, your face, your gesture, and then your movement, and then your gesture. And your voice and your face are really the two primary ones you wanted to project to the people that you were singing for. Okay, audition problems. Okay, you start your piece and the pianist isn't coming along with you, or they're playing it too fast. You have two options. You can try to make them conform to you, and you can sing faster or try to slow them down. Most really good accompanists can do that. Now, if for some reason that doesn't work, it's okay, I think, to say, "I'm sorry, can we start again?" and turn to the pianist and just say, "I'm sorry, can we do that possibly a little bit slower or a little bit faster? Thank you so much." Don't be disrespectful. Don't start snapping your fingers to tell them what the tempo is. Hopefully you'll be able to move that with your voice, but don't just go with it if you think it's going to sacrifice your audition. A lot of young singers are afraid to take charge of that because they're afraid they're going to offend somebody. But most pianists can do that. If they can't, just take a moment and say, "I'm so sorry, can we start again, please?" And most pianists will come along with that, and that's really what you need to, you have to be able to practice that. So possibly that might be something you want to practice with your pianist in your voice lessons, or when you're practicing your auditions, is having a pianist play the wrong tempo and see if you can adjust it for them and get some notes from them. Okay, there's also the chance that you might forget a lyric. And that happens to everybody. Everybody can forget a lyric. It's how you recover from that memory slip that's going to do you well. So if you stop, that says, okay, this person can't really think on their feet. So you have to keep going in an audition or in any performance that you give. You can't stop. You can't stop and say, "Excuse me, I forgot the words, can I go back?" Figure out a way to get out of it. Don't let them know you made a mistake. Because 9 times out of 10, if you don't show it, they don't know it. So if you didn't say the exact lyric at that moment, or the note didn't come out exactly the way you wanted it to come out, or the intention wasn't exactly what you wanted, if you show that on your face, then you blinked. Like they say, you blinked, and that is the thing that will show them this person isn't quite ready for this. So when you're in there, you have to just think, I can do nothing wrong. And I know these pieces so well that I can get my way out of any dilemma that might come up. And believe me, forgetting a lyric is something that everybody has done and will do, and it will happen to you. It's how you recover from that that really shows the kind of professional that you can be. Okay, so you've done the singing audition, they passed you on to the dance audition, fantastic. And now they're going to call you back to read for certain parts. Now, don't be offended if they're not going to have you read for the part you think you want. Oftentimes they're just trying to see what kind of versatility you have, especially if you're auditioning for like a summer stock company where they're doing things in repertory. They're looking for many types of people, so they're going to put you through the ringer to see what you can do. So, many of these things are cold readings, and cold readings are really tough if you're not good at it. Because you have the script and you have to read immediately. So, one way to practice that is to get together with your friends, pick scenes from musicals or from plays, and just open the book, get the same book, open it to page, and practice cold reading. Hopefully you know enough about the pieces you're auditioning for so that you can inform your reading when you're doing it. But part of that is that talent of doing the cold reading, and then possibly when you're doing the reading, taking direction. So there are many, many layers to this. This can go on for 2 or 3 days, sometimes weeks, depending on the level you're getting at, and months if you get to the highest levels. So, dance audition, cold reading, you're giving them the performance that you need to try to give, you're taking direction. They may say, can you try it this way? And the answer is always, I can absolutely try it that way. So, no matter in what part of the audition, if they ask you to try something, you try it. It's not necessarily if you succeed, but that you tried. So the music director in one case might at one point say, you know, can you sing a scale for me? Let me test your range. And they may have you vocalize for them. Do it. Because that's going to show, oh, they do have that range. Oh, I could consider them for that part as well. You have to put yourself and be as flexible as you can in that audition process once you've done your first number there. Improving, okay. This is a tough one because, okay, so let's say you go through this whole process and they don't cast you. That's tough because it really feels like it's a personal thing that they don't like me. You have to really divorce that from they didn't need what I have to offer at this time. Maybe it's they already had that role cast, or at this time they don't feel you're ready for that. But remember, you never know when they might need you. You don't know who's watching you perform, and they may be keeping you in mind for the next thing they might be doing, or if something comes up, they may say, oh yeah, who was that person? Yeah, I remember them. Let's call them into this audition. There are so many ways of achieving success in this process. So first of all, getting the audition. Okay, so you applied for an audition, or you showed up and you got the audition. That's number one. Getting the callback. That's another affirmation of your talent. I can tell you, there are so many people auditioning that nobody calls somebody back just for the sake of calling them back, okay? And all through that process, if they're talking to you, asking you questions, seeing what you can do, they're investing their time in you. Yes, we all want to book the job, we all want to get cast, but that's not really realistic because not everybody gets everything every time. So you have to really have a thick skin and say, okay, they don't think I'm quite ready for this, but maybe I'm ready for that. Okay, or maybe you know that you didn't have a good audition that day, so go back and reevaluate it. You have to be honest with yourself. It is a constant reevaluation. And remember, if you're going to let 3 or 4 people's opinion of maybe, let's say, a total of an hour of your life really decide the kind of talent and person you are, then the business is too tough for you because there's a lot more no's than there are yeses. But the more times you do it, the more times that people will say yes, and the more times that the people will say yes, the more jobs you'll have. So take heart. Everybody wants to book that job, but keep track of your successes Every callback, every audition is a success. Every callback is a success. And also, things you did in that audition. If you decided to take a chance during one of the callbacks, and while it didn't go your way, you were really proud of the fact that you did that, that's important. Hold that into yourself as a success rather than a failure. There are many, many, many auditions, and you have to take a lot of them to get a job. Another way to improve is when you're in the callbacks with the other people that are in the callbacks, look at what they're doing. Look at how they're treating the callback, especially early on. You don't want to compete with them, but when they cast that person, you have to ask yourself, okay, why did they choose them? Even if it's not a role you're up for, but there are 3 people up for the same role, and they chose them, watch their performances while you're in there if you can. See what they're doing, and then when they get cast, ask yourself, is that the person I would have cast? And if not, try to figure out what they did that got that person to cast them. You can't compete with that, but you can kind of see the process and the thinking of the people that are doing the audition. And of course, that changes with every audition panel, and quite frankly, it changes every day depending on the mood of the auditioners. Finally, the most important thing to remember is that you are there to give the best audition you can give, with all of your preparation, all the hard work you've done, and make sure that you set yourself up for the biggest success you can have. Practice all of those steps along the way. Walk into the room, project that public persona, project that performance persona. Give what you have to give, and then walk out and consider that a success, and don't play second guessing with yourselves. Don't worry that the person before you or the person after you is singing the same number, because sometimes they'll request you to sing something from the show. A lot of times not, but sometimes they will. So you may have 10 people singing the same number in a role. Doesn't matter. You are the person who's going to have something special to say about that, and don't start second guessing yourself. Go in, show them who you are. You may have 1 to 2 minutes for them to make that decision before they call you back. They're seeking that perfect person, and they only have a minute or so to make, minute to 3 minutes to really make that first impression. This is somebody I'm interested in. Because that's really where the first step starts. This is somebody that is interesting, someone I would be interested in working with. Oh, look, they work with so-and-so. Which brings me to something that we're going to talk about in our next session, which is, once you get the job, how to behave in rehearsals. Because this is a virtual workshop, and I can't give you any immediate feedback, the Princeton Festival and I are going to offer the first 25 people who can provide links and send them to education@princetonfestival.org. I will give you an evaluation. I would also like you to attach your resume and headshot so I can give you some constructive feedback about that as well. Those materials need to be submitted no later than July 1st. That's all for today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for our final session about the rehearsal. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.